the video was done by Samantha. She did a really terrific job putting that piece together, don't you think? Yeah, it was amazing. As we're all aware that domestic violence have been and still is one of the most major social issues affecting our homes, community, and country, not only in Guyana but throughout the globe. Under the title Domestic Violence and Suicide, 200 questionnaires were equally distributed throughout the rural area as well as in the city of Georgetown to compare their perspectives on domestic violence and to see how well they cope with these social issues. What is domestic violence? How many of you sitting here can give a distinct clarity to the term domestic violence? Anyone? Well, I'm sure most of you have an idea of what it is, but surprisingly, it was noted from our analysis that there's a vast difference between the ways the youth from the rural area thinks as compared to those in the city of Georgetown. Approximately 69% of the respondents in the rural area, were not able to give an idea of what domestic violence is, while 87% of the respondents in the city of Georgetown were able to give a definite answer. Keeping that in mind, my partner and I were able to come up with our own definition. Domestic violence is a pattern of aggressive behavior in any relationship, used by a partner to gain and maintain power and control over another partner. These behaviors violate one's rights, creating disharmony in the home. Domestic violence can either be in the form of physical, verbal, sexual, emotional, or psychological abuse, including child abuse. What are the contributing factors of domestic violence? Sorry about that. Okay, 56% of the respondents in the rural area claim that alcohol is a contributing factor of domestic violence. Meanwhile, 49% of the respondents in the city of Georgetown both share the opinion in alcohol. Poverty, 22% of the respondents in the rural area highlighted that poverty contributes to the prevalence of domestic violence, meanwhile only 18% share the same opinion. Illiteracy, on the other hand, I would say played a major role in contributing to domestic violence, since 15% of the respondents in the rural area highlighted that illiteracy is the main contributing factor of domestic violence, and only 3% of the respondents in the city of Georgetown shared the opinion. Religion and culture in the rural area showed a percentage of 7%, and infidelity in the city of Georgetown were a percentage of 16%. Social issue, a percentage of 18%. Something's wrong about that graph, don't you think? Yes? No? Well, it was noted from our analysis that the respondents in the city of Georgetown didn't even consider that religion or culture might be a contributing factor of domestic violence, whereas the youth from the rural area didn't mention anything about infidelity or social issue. That's interesting. Does domestic violence have a face? When asked who are mostly affected by domestic violence, it was highlighted that over the overall percentage of both respondents from the rural area as well as from the city and the rural area, they show a percentage of 43 stated that all ethnicity, including Amerindians, Chinese, Portuguese, you guys know it, right? Know this experience. 48.5 stated that Indo-Guyanese are mostly affected by domestic violence, where 8.5 only stated that Afro-Guyanese are mainly affected by domestic violence. Respondents who experience domestic violence. 77% of the respondents, as well as 29% of the respondents in the city of Georgetown, both experienced domestic violence. Meanwhile, 23% of the respondents in the rural area and 73% of the respondents in the city of Georgetown didn't experience any form of domestic violence. Types of abuse experienced. These are the type of abuse outlined by every respondent who have experienced some sort of violence in their home. Why victims stay in abusive homes or relationships? Many believe that victims stays in abusive home or relationship because of poverty, economic or financial support. Religious beliefs, custom, and tradition plays a role in domestic violence, predominantly for women, because women are most likely to be victims than men, so they find it really hard to end any form of abuse once it begins. Socialization. Socialization teaches boys and girls a belief system that devalues women, especially married women or women who have been divorced, creating a sense that family responsibility, a woman's responsibility lies in the maintenance of a family. Victim stays in an abusive home or relationship because they have nowhere to go. And those who seek help from community service often find that agencies are overwhelmed and limit their resources. So they endure abuse for the children so as to provide a better life for them, hoping that one day their partner would change. Fear the abuser. Women and children are more at risk of serious injuries and of murder at the time of separation. Putting yourselves in those victims' shoes, what would you do? Would you break the silence and say no to violence? Yeah, most of you guys be sitting, yeah, definitely, why not, right? But when looking at it from the rural area and from the city of Georgetown, it was highlighted that 29% of the respondents in the rural area, as well as 68% of the respondents in the city of Georgetown, are willing to speak out. Meanwhile, 56% of the respondents in the rural area and 18% in the city of Georgetown remained silent because they didn't want to be pitied or looked down at by members of the community. 50% of the respondents in the rural area, as well as 14% of the respondents in the city of Georgetown, weren't able to decide whether or not they would break the silence and say no to violence. So therefore, the overall percentage of those who are willing to speak out is 48.5%, and only 37% would remain silent. Do children and teenagers adopt abusive behaviors from their parents? Youths are like sponge. They observe everything around them. From data gathered through interviews and survey methods reflects the number of children who are personally victimized, as well as those who witness community violence as well as conflicts in their home, develop aggressive behaviors by watching others. 59% of the respondents in the rural area share the same opinion, as well as 69% of the respondents in the city of Georgetown. 17% from the rural area, as well as 14% in the city of Georgetown, did not believe that children can develop aggressive behaviors from their parents. And the 24% from the rural area, as well as the 17%, they stated that it all depends on the choices they make, because it depends on you and what you do. So you can develop it, and you can choose not to. It all depends on the choice you made. Will children and youths be affected if there is violence in the home? 72% say yes from the rural area, and 80% from the city of Georgetown shared the same opinion. 19% from the rural area said no, 44% from the city of Georgetown said no. 9% from the rural area said maybe, 60% said maybe as well. The effects of domestic violence on children and youths. It affects children's view of the world and themselves. Their idea about future happiness, their expectation for future happiness, and their moral development. These psychological effects can last a lifetime and may include some of these psychiatric disorders like depression, excessive anxiety, and a high risk of suicide. Development of learning disorder. Children develop learning disorder. They are unable to concentrate on their academic study and focus more on what's happening in their home in terms of violence against their mother. Children who are exposed to violence often become school bullies. Many children develop eating disorder, loss of appetite due to ongoing sadness, suicidal thoughts and attempt of suicide. Most children withdraw themselves from the world. They feel that taking their own life can relieve them from their ongoing sadness and trauma. So therefore, we can say that domestic violence is a contributory factor that leads to suicide. Now, what is suicide? Suicide is an intentional self-inflicted death, or, in other words, is a deliberate act of taking one's own life. Suicide in Guyana. According to the Global School-Based Student Health Survey 2010, under the topic of health education for students aged 13 to 15, highlighted the percentage of students who ever seriously consider attempting suicide during the last 12 months were a percentage of 32. 60.8 were boys, 29.1 were females. Percentage of students who had no close friends were a total of 10.2%, 9.8 were boys, and 10.6 were girls. Suicide behavior is a major public health problem in Guyana, as the country has the highest completed suicide rate in the English-speaking country, with deliberate self-harm being among the top 10 causes of death. Reasons why people choose to commit suicide. Many of the respondents who wrote the rural area as well as in the city of Georgetown highlighted that domestic violence, child abuse, or the case of being raped or sexually molested contributes to why someone would want to commit suicide. They think that it relieves them from pain, suffering, frustration, stress, or embarrassment. Financial issue, unwanted pregnancy, being neglected by their loved ones all contribute to why more teens commit suicide. Signs of suicidal intentions. Being mindful. If your child appears to display any of the following personality characteristics, it indicates that there is a deeper problem that may lead to suicidal thoughts. Showing signs of depression like ongoing sadness, withdrawal from others, or losing interest in favorite activities. Talking about or showing an interest in death or dying. Engaging in dangerous or harmful activities, including reckless behavior, substance abuse, or self-injuries. Giving comments that things will be better without them. So parents, if your child or children display any of these signs, it's about time that we listen. And for you youths, take notes. You never know when you could be helping a friend. Is enough emphasis being placed on domestic violence and suicide? 79% of the response in the rural area said no, whilst 21% of the response in the same rural area said yes. In the city of Georgetown, 52% of the respondents said no, and the remaining 48% highlighted that yes, enough emphasis is being placed on domestic violence and suicide. Suggestions that can be done to prevent domestic violence and suicide. Counseling. These respondents strongly believe that more counseling program should be available, not only in Georgetown, but in the city, in the rural area as well. Schools and other institutes. Most of the respondents believe that schools and other institutes should create programs that would educate youth on self-awareness, that will build self-esteem and self-confidence. Community workshops should be implemented so as to create dialogues, which would in turn create more persons breaking the silence and saying no to violence because of community support. More media. Respondents also think that there should be more ads on these social issues on television, radio, and the internet that would educate the public on some of these effects. So you media out there, no offense, but take heed. This is an actual case study, but the names of the characters were changed in order to protect the identity and privacy of the family. Justin, the oldest son of the Beaver family, was no less than 13. Everyone knew him as this sincere, hardworking, and funny individual. But as of recent, his behavior pattern gradually changed. He became violent, inconsiderate, and untrustworthy towards his friends and family. A family background check was made, and it was noted that Jason came from an abusive home. He practically grew up witnessing his uneducated, alcoholic father abusing his mother. Jason, along with his two other brothers, Jay and Alex Beaver, also experienced physical and emotional abuse by their father. Apart from that, he never had a normal childhood like most of us. Because of his parents' financial background, he had to work at an early age to assist his parents in providing some sort of support. Meanwhile, while maintaining a job, his academic study, and his social life with his friends. At the age of 13, he became more aware of what's happening around him, and he didn't like what he saw. He began to develop a sense of hatred towards his father, and swore he wouldn't be like him. But unconsciously, Jason started indulging in negative activities. He was physically fighting with girls his age and degrading them, and eventually started stealing. Now, with the help of a non-governmental organization, Jason's giving the support and guidance he needs, as well as his entire family. But it wouldn't be an easy task to convince neither one of them. Jason's afraid of speaking out because he fears being rejected and criticized by members of society and doesn't want to embarrass his parents. Another case study was made on his younger brother, Jay Beaver, to compare if teenagers do adopt abusive behaviors from their parents and to see how does abuse affect them. Being the fact that they were both came from the same background, Jay Beaver shared the same experience as Justin. But the only thing different about this case study is that Jay is not like his older brother. Despite the fact that he came from an abusive home, Jay's personality is quite different. He's always enthusiastic about doing more. Jay loves his brother and they both have a strong relationship. The funny thing about life is that there comes a point in time where we have to make critical or life-changing decisions. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, whether you're from an abusive home or you being exposed to violence or child abuse. What does matter is how you choose to gain from your experience. You can't break the cycle. You can't break the cycle and say no to violence. You can't determine what your future holds for you. But you know what? It begins with you. You have to want the change because your decision, your actions can make a difference. So therefore, I ask, how many of you are willing to stand up and say no to violence and give your support to those women who are battered, our children who are sexually exploited by abusers, who in a sense were taken away from them uncrudely? No to the abuse of our women, children who are sexually exploited.
Okay, give yourself a round of
how you live your life. And you can make the difference, and you can choose what your future holds for you. Just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Let me hear you. No to violence. No to violence. Come on, guys, over there. Say it like you mean it. No to violence. Thank you.